Today's reading is Chapter 8, the Soliloquy of the Queen, in which Sheila is allowed to express her ambitions, her sorrows, her regrets, really in her own words. When I wrote this chapter, I had two things in mind. One was Molly Bloom's soliloquy in Ulysses, and the other was Thornton Wilder's Our Town, the play in which I participated in, acted in college, and in which the characters are really allowed to kind of describe themselves. So here it is, a deep dive in Sheila in her own voice. So this is not the narrator talking. This would be Sheila talking to you directly, the reader. In this case, I will not attempt to impersonate a woman's voice, so just imagine it's a woman talking to you and telling you about her life. So here we go, Chapter 8, Soliloquy of the Queen. Ever since I was in college, I dreamed of owning a vineyard, neatly hedged like an English garden. I walked down rows of vines, wearing a white dress, carrying a sun umbrella, sipping a glass of wine made from my grapes, while field hands toiled below. I graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Wellesley College and walked in the footsteps of Diane Sawyer, Madeleine Albright, and Hillary Rodham Clinton. Instead of a career in the public limelight, I pursued my passion for art and was on track to be the best in my field. I was good. Sometimes I wonder how I ended up here, in this place. Maybe I'm not so smart, otherwise I wouldn't be stuck in the middle of nowhere, married to him. After college, I joined Sotheby's North American headquarters in New York City, cataloging European art. It was a dream job, in the center of the art world, in the center of everything, doing what I loved. I always wanted to visit California, and when I had a chance to transfer to Sotheby's San Francisco office, I took it. All right, I'll admit one reason for making the move was to be closer to Paul. He was so adorable when I met him. How could you not like him, even if he was a little immature? How stupid was that? A woman should never move to be closer to a man. Stick to your guns, ladies. Do what you need to do. I should have stayed in New York and focused on my work, and if I had done that, I would have been promoted to vice president and eventually promoted to the London head office, and who knows how my life would have turned out. Instead, I married him, and here I am. What a mistake. There's no culture here. Nothing to do except sit around and watch the vines grow. At least I have Bluey. He's my dog, you know. I spent my junior year abroad studying art history in London, and on weekends journeyed to the countryside, the Cotswolds, Oxford, and of course Stratford-upon-Avon, since I was raised in Stratford, Connecticut, in New England. For fun, I sketched the gardens I visited. That summer, I stayed in Paris and made excursions to Versailles and the castles of the Loire, and sketched those gardens too, all perfectly manicured, the leaves of each bush trimmed with the precision of a high-end hairdresser. A well-managed vineyard should be the same, just like the vineyard I visited in Burgundy, where we picked grapes. It was so much fun. I love Pinot Noir, and the vines, all neatly hedged and sculpted. Vineyard is art. Just look at this place. The vines are out of control. Paul says I shouldn't hedge them. He says they need leaves to turn sunlight into sugar. Who cares? They're so messy. If I trim them, the leaves will grow back and they'll look much neater. London was a blast, going to plays in the West End, pub crawling, dancing in clubs. I was good looking. I could have married anyone. I'm still good looking. Now that Kate and Alex are grown, sometimes I think of leaving him. I told Paul I wanted a vineyard, but never said I wanted to work in a vineyard. Making wine is too much work. We should sell the grapes. Paul says we can't make money selling grapes, but that we have to make wine to make money. But he doesn't sell the wine. He says he's too busy. If he doesn't have time to sell our wine, then we should sell the grapes. If he insists on making wine, we should make blush wine, because ours tastes so good and it's easy to sell, and port wine, because we don't have to worry about it spoiling. I remember the first time I tasted rosé. It was on that trip to the Loire, and I noticed a sign for wine tasting in a cave that served rosé d'Anjou, and in my dream of walking in a vineyard wearing a white dress, the color of wine in my glass is pink. It was my idea to make blush wine. I told Paul it would be a hit. We need to build a cellar to store our wine, dig into the side of our hill, just like that cave in France. But Paul says we don't have the money. If he didn't take my money, I'd pay for it. And if he didn't waste all his time and money on that woman, he would have been successful. What does he know about making money? I told him to sell Qualcomm stock when it was $200 a share. He didn't. I told him we should start a brewery. He didn't. Look at all the microbreweries around here and how much they're making. His doctor's son sold his brewery for $1 billion. Yes, billion with a B. Here we are spending more money growing grapes than we are selling wine. That's stupid. We should make blush wine. It's so popular, and ours tastes so good. And distill any of our wine that isn't great. The French call it cognac. We should buy all Carrie Ann's wines. Hers are awful. And distill it and buy grapes from other growers and distill those. Grapes are so inexpensive here. Then with our own grapes, we'll make the best rosé and call it Bluey's Blush and put Bluey on the label. Who could resist that? Especially if Paul redesigned the label. I like port wine. It's sweet. And because of its high alcohol, doesn't spoil. If it oxidizes, that's tawny port and tastes even better and lasts forever. I'll call it port if I want to, because that's what it is. When I die, I'll leave my children a cave full of port they can sell at their leisure, and 50 large palm trees, the ones with the pineapple shape, worth $10,000 each. They sure aren't going to get any money from Paul. He spent it all. It was my idea to plant the vineyard. Paul never accomplished anything without me. It's my vineyard, and Bluey is my dog. I raised him. I trained him. I feed him food I make. It's good. And when I'm too tired to cook, I eat it too. Paul cooks on weekends, but doesn't clean up. The dishwasher is broken, and he says we don't have enough money for a new one. How is it we have enough to buy expensive bottles and oak barrels, but not a dishwasher? He bought presents for that whore, but won't buy his wife a dishwasher. When we dated, he did the dishes. Now, I have to do the dishes, wash the clothes, vacuum the house, take care of the vineyard, care for the dog. I'm the one who changes Bluey's water in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Dogs need fresh water, otherwise they'll go crazy. That's why coyotes are wild. They don't get enough water. I'm the one who walks Bluey every day, brushes his hair, and plucks foxtails from his fur. Paul doesn't brush him. If I don't, Bluey will turn into a fur knot, and then I'll have to take him to the vet to surgically remove the foxtails. Do you know what a foxtail can do to a dog? A foxtail is a weed with an arrowhead. If it lodges in the midsection, it wiggles its way into the dog's lung, punctures it, lung collapses, dog can't breathe, dog dies. A foxtail in the ear drills to the brain. Ask Janet. She knows. One day she's showing off, commanding her dog to roll over, shake hands, fetch. The next day the dog didn't respond to her commands, so she hit him, bitch. And the next day the dog's dead. Foxtail to the brain. What a shame. She's a work of art. She brings her own wine to neighborhood potlucks and doesn't share. She'll drink the whole bottle herself, then help her husband finish his. At least Joe shares his wine, and it's always good. Her brother Mark is decent. I like him. He's kind. I wonder why it's taking him so long to find work. I don't trust Joe. Sure, he has a lot of money, but there's something about him. I can see people. Paul can't see people at all. He doesn't know how to use them. He's a poor manager. No wonder he's a failure. Of course, I'm Republican, so Joe and I have that in common. When growing up, if you're not liberal, you're cold-hearted. But if you're not conservative by middle age, you're a fool. Even though I didn't vote for Obama, when I met him, I could see he was a good person. I wish I could say the same thing about those Secret Service agents. They kept a closer eye on Carrie Ann than the president. She's a show-off, showing off her tattoo and bust in the tasting room. No wonder men line up to buy her wine. Carrie Ann copies me, always trying to compete against me. It was my idea to make blush wine. It was my idea to put barrels of port outside to age in the sun. I started making balsamic vinegar, and the next thing you know, she's got a vinegar factory. Well, that's a good use for her wine. She thinks her wine is great. I guess people like what they're used to. As for Bluey, he's human. His soul is pure. Look into his eyes, and you'll see the face of God. He's my son, now that Alex is grown. I don't mind cooking for Bluey or washing his rear. I like a clean dog. Each morning, he walks with me up the hill where I pick an orange and peel it, his mouth salivating. He takes a slice from my hand. He loves oranges. He eats everything I hand him. Paul says you're not supposed to have citrus in a vineyard because sharpshooters roost there in winter and kill the vines. When I saw him walking up the hill with a chainsaw, I shouted, "What are you doing?" He was going to cut down our orange trees. I told him to leave the orange trees alone. They're here for a reason. They're tangelos, actually, a hybrid of grapefruit and tangerine, and the fruit is delicious. In winter, young tangelos taste tart, sour as lemons, but the fruit that hangs until summer is sweet. I'll squeeze fresh juice for breakfast, and after a day in the vineyard, I'll squeeze one into a glass, then pour in a shot of our homemade tequila. It's great moonshine, and walk to the gazebo with Bluey and watch the sunset. The juice is so sweet, there's no need for triple sec. It's a perfect, homegrown Bluey Rita. I told Paul we should get a license to make grappa and make great moonshine, but he never listens. If he listened, he'd make a lot of money. Making wine is not money-making, but distilling it, we could make a lot. Our lemon tree is amazing, a Myers lemon. The skin is dark yellow and thick, like an orange. Sometimes I make my margarita with that. Once we made limoncello with skins from Myers lemons and our great moonshine. I like it strong, so didn't dilute it with water. I was surprised how good it tasted. It didn't need sugar, because there was a natural sweetness to the lemon skin. Of course, I'm not allowed to add sugar now. I entered it in the Del Mar Fair Spirits competition and won a blue ribbon Bluey wears around his neck. I told Paul we should make and sell limoncello, but he ignored me. On our morning walk, Bluey and I passed through the apple orchard I planted. His eyes bulged when I handed him an apple. I remember the day I couldn't find him. I thought he ran away. I walked frantically all over the vineyard calling him, and finally spotted him in the orchard chewing fallen apples. I think the only thing he likes better are lamb chops. When I hand him a lamb chop, he has that bulging eye look as he rips meat off the bone. The intense concentration of those eyes reminds me of the shark in Jaws. I don't know why Paul doesn't hire some guys to clean up the yard once or twice a month. He says he wants to do everything himself, but it's me who does all the work. I was trimming my palm trees, and the tip of a frond jabbed my finger. I pulled out the needle with tweezers. A palm tip is like a poisoned foxtail. When I showed my finger to Paul, he said there's nothing there, but it hurt so much and became swollen. I was sure it was infected by part of the needle lodged inside. The next thing you know, your finger is getting amputated. Finally, he took me to the doctor, and the whole time we were in the office, he kept answering emails on his phone. The nurse asked, "Is he really your husband?" I answered, "No, he's not my husband. We're just married." I should have married someone like the doctor. He listens to me. or someone like you. I think I'll call the doctor for a follow-up visit. The only time Paul washed dishes was after my finger surgery. I don't like the way he washes. He doesn't get the dishes clean. As soon as I could, I was washing again, which gave him more time to work outside to trim bushes, trees, and vines, which I have to pick up. I can't believe he won't buy a dishwasher or pick up his cuttings, no matter how many times I ask. I've always lived near water. My parents' home was by Long Island Sound. When I moved to San Francisco, I drove to Half Moon Bay to walk on the beach some Saturdays. When we moved to San Diego, we lived by the coast. I told Paul, there's no reason to move to San Diego unless we have an ocean view. Living out here, I might as well be in Arizona. We're so far from the beach and never go. Bluey loves the beach. Growing up, I always wanted to visit the West Coast, but never imagined living here. My senior year in college, I overheard a girl talking with her friends in the lunch line about California and asked if she was from there. Yes, she answered, from Walnut Creek outside San Francisco. That was like meeting an alien from another planet. I joined her for lunch and we became friends. She had this outgoing, sunny personality, different from people I grew up with, who see the negative in everything and plan for the worst. And because they expect the worst, that's what happens. This California girl, she was so positive. I visited her when I heard about the opening in our San Francisco office. I wanted to know what living in California was like before moving. When I saw croissants and espresso everywhere, that was a good start. It felt so hip, so right. And you could see the ocean, which was hard to do from Manhattan, although we were close. And the weather was much better than winter in New York. When I moved to the Bay Area, it wasn't because of Paul, but the thought crossed my mind it would be nice to see him. He was good-looking, carefree, optimistic. I didn't realize he was ambitious until we met in San Francisco. I admired his knowledge of the world. When he took me to Chez Panisse and discussed the menu in French with Alice Waters, I began to like him seriously. We went to Paris on our honeymoon, to the place we first met, the Gare Saint-Lazare, and boarded a train to Normandy, where he introduced me to his French godmother. We drove around the countryside and stayed at her old stone house. I like Marie-France. She puts Paul in his place. When Kate was born, I stayed home to give her the best possible upbringing. When I look back at my career, leaving New York was a mistake. I was out of sight of senior management and out of mind. Once I decided to stay home to raise my baby. That was the end. I was good at my work, a solid appraiser with strong performance reviews. I know how to manage people. Look how well I managed the vineyard installation, building our retaining walls and shed, and remodeling our house. Kate's like her father and doesn't listen to me. I raised her to be a doctor, but she's working as a receptionist for a startup in New York. I don't understand why she doesn't like New York. She told me she wants to move to San Francisco. I told her to go as long as it's not to follow a boy. It's a great place for young people. I'm so proud of Alex, yet so worried. I told him not to enlist, but his father and grandfather wouldn't stop him. My blood pressure rises just thinking about him in Afghanistan. I have two things now, my dog and my vines. I'm the one outside every day taking care of them, raking leaves, twigs, and dried pieces of wood. The vineyard is an extension of our home, important to keep clean, especially the corners. I keep asking Paul to carry a bin whenever he prunes, cuts, or thins, and to put things into the bin, but he leaves everything behind. He says he's leaving food for rabbits. Who cares about the rabbits? He doesn't pay me. If he had to pay Miguel to clean up, he wouldn't leave a mess. I shouldn't bend over. He says he'll pick up the leaves and sticks, so I rake piles for him, but they sit there for days. It's so irritating. Why does he make me bend over to pick up his trash when he knows I have high blood pressure? He helps Carrie Ann bottle her wine, but he won't clean up our winery. I have to do it. He cleans the toilet at church. because the church doesn't have enough money to hire someone, but he won't clean our bathroom. He should hire some people to help with the work outside and a maid to help inside. He should give me the money every time he sells wine. I'm the one who grows the grapes. And now he's giving wine away for free. How can he do that? It's my wine. He used my money to buy the house and plant the vineyard. So that makes me the whole operation mine. Then he stole my money, and he had the nerve to tell me I'm responsible for half the expenses. If he makes me pay for food, I'll stop eating. A husband is supposed to provide for his wife. He owes me $100,000. When he pays me back, I'm leaving. I raised the dog and raised our children. Paul was traveling for work all the time. Even though his parents lived close by, they never helped me take care of Kate and Alex when they were little. When I had an ear infection, his mother didn't help. My hearing has never been the same. Why should I take care of them as they grow old? Bluey's a herding dog and follows Paul to keep an eye on him. That underlying, lying, cheating goat. Paul goes to church, but it doesn't do him any good. He thinks he'll find God in a building. He doesn't understand God is in your heart. Why does he give the church my money and my wine? I wouldn't mind donating, but we have debt. Why do we have to give money when we don't have enough for ourselves? Why do they let him in after everything he's done? He spent all my money on that woman, buying her designer clothes, perfume, jewelry. All I have to wear is old clothes. Look at the holes. When is the last time I bought a new dress, new underwear? He never buys me anything. I'll never forgive him. They should kick him out of church. I guess they don't kick him out so they can get free wine. My wine. It costs a lot of money to make that wine. He should pay me. I wrote a song for Bluey. Would you like to hear it? Beautiful boy, beautiful baby, you are so beautiful, beautiful boy. Mama loves you, Papa loves you, you are so beautiful, beautiful boy. When Bluey was a year old, I noticed him licking his paws nonstop. The vet said he had allergies. I asked what kind. She didn't know, so we had him tested. The test indicated he's allergic to grass. Who ever heard of a sheepdog allergic to grass? Although he's not allergic to meat, she suggested putting him on a diet of salmon and potato made by Science Diet that's $75 a bag. That's less than what we spend on food each week, so it's a bargain. I'll spare no expense for Bluey. He's worth every penny. When Paul went to Paris on business, I told him, don't come back without a Louis Vuitton leash. When we moved to the country, our new vet suggested we cook for Bluey, so I bought a crock pot and started cooking for him. I hate to cook, but anything for Bluey. Bluey's food is too good for Miguel. Why doesn't he bring his own lunch like every other worker? Why does he expect me to cook? Every time I go to their shed, some tools are missing. Miguel drives over here in Joe's Gator and helps himself to our post digger, iron bar, gripple tightener, chainsaw, whatever he needs at a moment's notice. He doesn't work properly. If I pay him a full day's wage, by the afternoon he's sitting around drinking beer while everyone else is working. We should just hire his guys. Miguel is always cheating us. I keep an eye on that one-eyed pirate. That's what they call him, El Pirata. They should call him El Ladrón, the thief. When he arrives with a crew, bringing extra guys I don't ask for, I have to manage them. It's bad enough when one guy sits down, but when you have a whole bunch of guys sitting around doing nothing while Miguel goes to Joe's to pick up a tool he forgot and to chug a beer, wasted money adds up fast. Paul's a bad manager. He doesn't keep workers on task. He'll start talking with Miguel about Joe's grapes, Carrie Ann's grapes, his exploits in Tijuana with his chicas. I don't know what they see in him other than money. the money he takes from me. So I have to organize the work. Finito, segundo, próximo trabajo, vámonos amigos. Next, let's go. It's me who taught them the meaning of next. They know that's the word coming when they finish a task. Next. I don't care if they call me Mrs. Next behind my back. I pay them to work, and Miguel should pay me for the meals I cook for him. God, it infuriates me just talking about him. I can't believe he teases Bluey. He shouted at him. I warned him, if you ever shout at my dog again, I'll tell everyone in the neighborhood what a crook you are. That shut him up. The next week, when Miguel and his crew were here, I heard Bluey barking. I walked up the hill to see what was going on and found Bluey limping. I'm sure Miguel did something to him. I took Bluey to the vet. I should have sent the bill to Miguel. If he hurts my dog, I'll kill him. I don't understand why Paul collects kitchen scraps in a bucket in the sink. It stinks up my kitchen. If he saves scraps, he should take them outside to the compost pile. But he doesn't. Each morning he goes to work and the gunk in the bucket gets higher and reaches the point where I put it outside. And if I'm lucky, on the weekend he'll carry it to the compost. If he wants a compost pile, he should take care of it. He keeps saying he wants a compost pile closer to the house. But I don't want a pile of trash near my house, especially in the corner. It's the corner of a property that determines how well it's maintained. The same with a house. If one part of the house isn't clean, the whole house is out of order. Paul has had a pile of papers on his desk for months. Finally, when I've had enough, I'll put all his papers in a box. He promises to sort through the boxes during Christmas, but he never does. On December 31st, he'll throw the boxes into the recycle bin. At least he starts the new year with a clean desk. That lasts about 2 weeks. After the harvest, Paul carries the grape stems up the hill. I keep asking him not to compost stems. When dry, they become little sticks that get caught in the nets when I drag them to hang. If he wants to compost and leave sticks on the ground, he should hang the nets himself. Besides, the stems have no nutrition. Everyone knows that. It's the same with dry leaves and dried grape skins. No nutrition. Yet Paul wants to compost them. That's the stupidest thing I've seen him do, is after pressing. We're left with this giant cake of grape skins. He lugs up the hill and spreads around Vine's trunks. Bluey follows him to see where he dumps the skins and returns later to eat them. He loves grapes, but they'll kill him. What's Paul trying to do? Kill my dog? Worse, those stems and grape skins contain thousands of microscopic mealybug eggs. The next thing you know, we'll end up with a mealybug infestation. Who'll clean that up? I'll have to peel the bark off every vine. For 7 years, we had no mealybugs. It started with Joe. We noticed mealybugs at his harvest one year. The next year, Merlot Mac had mealybugs. Then Carrie Ann. I bet Miguel carried mealybugs from property to property so he could charge us to get rid of him. What a pirate. Miguel charges $10 for each gopher he traps. He'll catch one at Carrie Ann's and release it at Joe's. Talk of double dipping. I challenged him to a gopher trapping competition and beat him. He doesn't believe in my trick for catching gophers. Put fresh grass at the entrance of their hole. They'll come out to eat it and the trap catches them. Miguel laughs and says it's not true. The gopher is coming out to repair his hole, not eat grass. What does he know? I deducted $10 from his pay for the gopher I caught. Oak trees here are live oaks, unlike the oaks back home in Connecticut with fiery fall colors. They're green all year, but shed some leaves in winter. I raked their small, crinkly, dry leaves into piles for Paul to carry down the hill and dump into green waste containers. You don't want those leaves blowing around in a fire. What did I find? He spread the leaves all over the hill. Why on earth did you do that? I asked. To prevent erosion, he said. How am I supposed to see a snake under the leaves? I want to spray the weeds to kill them, but Paul hid the Roundup. If I find it, I'll spray them. I keep asking Paul to keep the weeds out. The weeds grow into foxtails or those corkscrew needles. I have to protect Bluey, and if the weeds are tall, I can't see if any snakes are there. I want the vineyard floor as clean as my house so I can see where I'm stepping. Paul says we need weeds as a cover crop to stop erosion. I understand that, but then he should pick the foxtails out of Bluey's fur if he doesn't cut the weeds. I can't believe he cuts weeds by hand. He says everything about our wine is handcrafted, even the weeds. It would be a lot easier if he just sprayed them. Then he cut my favorite flower, a young sunflower, saying it was a weed. I couldn't believe it. I'll sue him if he ever cuts another one of my sunflowers. Paul tries to save money by not hiring guys. During the harvest, it's cheaper to hire workers than asking neighbors to volunteer. Instead, he invites all his friends over to help. Who has to cook for them? Me. It's a lot of work. I have to clean the house. Does he help? I have to go to Costco and buy food for all those people. Paul says, you don't have to cook for them. They're my friends. What's he thinking? They're going to be hungry when they get here and expect food. I have to prepare everything. He says he'll help, but he doesn't. If you add up the cost of food and wine, he gives each volunteer several bottles. It's more economical to hire a crew. They come here and in 4 hours they're finished, and it's not necessary to cook. Paul invites people over to show off. He and Carrie Ann, they're both show-offs, and it's an excuse for him to get into a pick bin with a 20-something fresh out of college. What's he thinking? That she's going to do him? In the pick bin? What a joke! He's such a fool. He doesn't think I know what he's thinking. I'm not a doormat. I keep warning him to change before it's too late. Joe has just one harvest, and he's done. We have 5. I prefer one large harvest, but Paul says the other grapes aren't ready, so I have to prepare 5 feasts. It's too much work. I'm getting tired of this. We should just sell the grapes. Then we wouldn't have to worry about making wine and can enjoy the vines. It's getting harder for me to handle all these people coming over. I feel my blood pressure rising just thinking about it. Paul doesn't understand. I'm getting too old. He swore he's not going to invite any friends over for harvest this year. Well, I'm hoping this year he means it. I'm thinking of asking Alex to bring over some of his buddies to pick. I'd rather pay them than that wetback. Paul's starting to listen since I came home from the hospital. If he'd listened to me earlier, he would have been successful. I'll tell you this, if he invites any of his friends to the harvest this year, that's it. I'll kick him out. I'll divorce. He wanted to leave me 10 years ago. This time, I'll let him go. I need peace and quiet. Our house is so cold in winter. In the daytime, Paul turns off the heater, saying the best way to warm up is to go outside and work in the sun. Evenings, my bed is cold, and he won't come to my room to warm it, so I call Bluey to sleep with me. He doesn't take showers on weekends after working outside. He stinks and brings fleas inside that bite. Isn't there a spray I can use to keep bugs from eating me? I'm a walking picnic. Look at my legs. Look at the scars. My dermatologist says, Sheila, hire a Mexican. Stop working outside. But I love my vines. Look at this bite here, and this one, all up and down my legs. Isn't there a cream to stop the itching? Fleas in my house, mice in my car. Why do I have to drive such an old car? It's embarrassing. I need a truck and a gator to go up and down the hills. He won't buy me one. There's a leak in the bathroom. He won't fix it. 2 burners on the stove are broken. I want to change the roof. It's covered with ugly yellow algae. If the house had a new roof, it would be beautiful. When he pays me back the money he owes me, I'll get a new roof. It's so hot here in summer. We really need an air conditioner. Paul says I should wake up early and work outside in the morning when it's cooler. By the time I finish the inside chores, it's 10 o'clock and already hot. I'm tired. I need to sleep in the morning. He says I should take a nap in the afternoon, but how can I relax in a messy house? He bought an air conditioner for the garage to keep wine he can't sell cool, but not an air conditioner for his wife in the house. Does he want me to nap in the garage? Is he trying to kill me? I want to move back to the coast where it's cooler. I'm going to die in this heat. But he says if we got solar power, I can use as much air conditioning and heat as I want. But solar panels on our roof would ruin how the house looks. Look around the neighborhood at all the solar installations. They're so ugly. I'm going to sue the neighbors below us for ruining my view. I bought a sewing machine, and when it was hot outside, I stayed in and made a blanket for Bluey. Then I sewed wine carriers. I bet I can sell more wine carriers than Paul can sell bottles of wine. Despite the heat, I knitted the vines last year, and Paul practically shouted at me for not fastening the tops. I told him birds don't enter from the top, they enter from the bottom. He started talking about Star Wars and Luke Skywalker and how birds fly like Jedi Knights in search of the tiniest opening to penetrate the net fortress. I trimmed the palms instead of tying the nets. They were so messy. When Paul came home, the property looked beautiful, but he accused me of ruining the grapes, complaining birds had attacked. He should tie the nets himself. I love the vines. They're my babies. I talk to them every day. I purchased some Pinot Noir vines and planted them myself in front of the house. Paul and Carrie-Anne say it's too hot to grow Pinot here, but I'll show them. Look how well they're coming along. I've watered them with a hose every day since they were babies. Paul says I should put a nozzle on the hose, that I'm wasting water. But it's hard for me to squeeze a nozzle. It hurts my hand. So I took it off. The water comes out faster without a nozzle, and I finish sooner. Who says I can't water my vines in the afternoon? So what if there's a drought? You'll have to excuse me. I need to water them now. I really enjoyed talking with you. Please come back soon and let's talk some more. Come, Bluey. Let's go.